Well, hello, friends. Today we have my friend Lou Toomey with us. Lou Toomey has spent his entire career playing with major artists. Probably the first big artist he played with was Keith Whitley, and moved on to Faith Hill and did some work with Tim McGraw too. And then has spent a couple decades playing with Brooks and Dunn. Mm-hmm. He's played every major, television show, that features music, and is just kind of someone that is an example of a lifelong successful road dog.
Hey, I'm out of here. Thank you.
So, first off, thank you for doing this, Lou.
You're welcome.
And then, secondly, what is like the earliest music you remember that like really moved you and really like made
Aretha Franklin.
Yeah. Which song or which album?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
It was the '60s, so so whatever was on the radio,
yeah.
But Aretha Franklin just flipped all the switches for me as a kid, and it just. Because that's what turns me on is soul music and R&B, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what got you into the guitar?
Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Are You Experienced? My sister gave me that album in '67, I think. Whatever. You might correct me because I'm horrible with dates. I'm horrible.
It's
I'm
around
basically
there.
horrible,
Yeah.
but it's going to be. But Hendrix was my man.
Yeah.
So.
And so you start playing. When do you start like actually playing gigs and playing like with other people?
Let's see. I started in first year. I started playing guitar. Started playing in garage bands and hippie parties, and
Yeah.
and all that stuff, extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
So
all the fun stuff.
Yeah, all the fun stuff.
Yeah. And when did things start? When did you start doing it? When did you start like making money and actually buying guitars and stuff like that?
Well, that's a story that comes with. I was preface this by saying I was trying to be a father at 20 years old.
Okay.
My beautiful wife and her son Chris, who I've been with since he was 5 years old, so he's my son. And so it's never been like, ooh, I can make money in gigs and spend that money on guitars, because I was busy trying to survive. So
you were supporting yourself with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you're from Kentucky. What part of Kentucky?
Lexington.
Are you from? Lexington. Yeah. Okay, and that kind of had a scene. Who were some of the people that you met in that scene that maybe people would know?
Well, Lexington was a kind of a hotbed for the J.D. Crows and the Keith Whitleys, and the Vince Gill was through there. Charlie Daniels was through there. There was a studio called Track 16, which is a huge deal to have 16 track recordings in the 70s, and I think Charlie was in through there, and that's where I got to. I had a conversation with Vince one time at the CMAs. This has been quite a few years ago, and just discussed. There was a Limco Studios out in Lexington, and I don't know if you've heard of Limco Studios.
I have. Yeah.
It's basically Cecil Jones was his name, and it was a garage. At the time it looked like it was this mansion. There was this gigantic place you'd go into, but it was basically just a garage, and that was. So there was a lot of that in Lexington, but that's how I got accustomed to playing, and just a lot of gigs, man,
So how did you, what was your first, pro gig, playing with like a signed act?
A signed act. That would probably been Keith.
And so how did you get so you had known Keith Whitley mainly as kind of a bluegrass guy, a country/bluegrass guy?
Well, first off, all the music that I'd listened to, like I said, the Hendrix, and then it was Cream, and it was Zeppelin, and all these things. And that went into the snobbery of rock and roll guitar. And then my second love was probably Merle Haggard. And when I realized Merle Haggard was a white soul singer that just absolutely flipped the switch for me as well, that's when I could play in a country band and make money. But I was already making money in horn bands. I was playing horn bands in the late 70s. And it was like, and I look back on those times and think, God, I wish I'd have been able to absorb this more, because it's not like now, because all this, I don't recall. I mean, I just recall I'd show up and you'd start playing these songs and dance band stuff. And I played in a couple dance bands like that with horns, and we played all over the Eastern Kentucky area and wore tuxes and the whole deal. And so I kind of went from that into playing in country bands.
Okay. And Merle Haggard was like your entry drug.
Yeah. And that's when I realized how hard it was to play a D chord in time.
Yeah.
Because that's not an easy proposition. You think it is, at least at the time, in those days it was that hard. It was hard for me. So,
well, I've always been curious about, because I knew your early influences were all, like Cream, Zeppelin, and it's like, how did you get in? Was it just the proximity, or what was it that got you into country music? And so it was Merle Haggard.
That was it, man. Merle. And then that's when there's a guy named Carson Chamberlain. Yeah. And Carson now is a known songwriter / producer. Worked for Mercury Records. Went on to work for Mercury Records at the time. And
Carson's behind Zach Top's career.
Yeah. And Carson had I think he just got out of the military. He just got out of the Marines. And he just maybe had a steel guitar for 6 months or something like that. And so I remember the garage door opened up. There was this place that I met a guy that I went to high school with. His name was Larry Redmond. Larry Redmond, he was a great country voice. And I did a record on him in 2018, which I'm proud of, man, because I finally thought it was a good record for him, because he'd had a lot of people record him in Nashville. But so this was Larry's mom's house. The garage door was open. It was summertime, and there was Carson and Larry, and I'm not sure of the other guys who they were. I don't remember at the time, or now I don't remember. But yeah, that's how I started playing with Carson. So in the Carson deal, we started working with Larry as his backup band and playing bars and gigs around Central Kentucky. And then we played in a club, which probably goes back to my very first, when you asked about my first gig, I went and played. I was in a band. We called it the Migrant Pickers. No. Well, I think it was, no, it wasn't that. I'm sorry. I'm having a brain fart here. What was it called? It was something ridiculous. But we had this band, and we played everything from Trower to all this stuff. And we played this bar in Richmond, Kentucky, which was a college town / mountain town / oh hell, there's going to be fights over a lot of everything. So that club was called the Maverick Club. And that's where Keith would come in and sit in with us. Okay. So he knew Keith would come in there, and I think Keith would have cocktails, and everybody knew his name because Keith was a bluegrass. He was a bluegrass name then. He was huge, man. And so he would get in, and he'd come up and sit in with us and do Haggard songs. And I just knew then. I said, man, what charisma, what a smile, what a voice. Mm-hmm. And then and he told me on stage one time. He goes, man, we're gonna work together one day. And he loved my playing, and that was the beginning of our story. And so how did so when did you start working with Keith, and how did that happen? Well, it happened. He had a guitar player. Actually, he was playing bass. His name was Randy Hayes, and Randy was a very, very talented guy. He played bass with him, I think, with J.D. Crowe. I don't know if I'm correct totally on a lot of this, but history is. And but he ended up playing guitar with Keith. And there was an issue. There was an issue that happened. I was working at a hardware store in Lexington, Kentucky, and playing gigs on the weekend and trying to be a dad and a husband, and something happened, and I got a phone call from Carson. And I remember, hey, Lou, it's phone for you. And I picked up the phone. Hey, man, you want to do this gig with Keith? I was like, yeah.
Yeah. So
And that's how it started.
yeah. So yeah, that's the great way to get a gig. No audition, none of this other stuff. They know you already, and it's just and you're kind of a known quantity. And it's like, hey, do you want to come join us?
I tell you one thing, I learned pretty quickly because I didn't have any grasp of what entailed for a working man, a side man in the business, which is replicating parts. And I was I remember having a conversation with Keith in the back of the bus, and it was like one of those, hey man, you need to listen to this stuff harder and play these hooks better. One of those kind of, but he was such a sweetheart.
Yeah.
And I told him, I said, man, yes, I'll do it. Yeah. But it was a time too, it's like, because we have everything at our disposal now. And then it was like, so I need to hear this music, and how do I hear it? And it's like this.
Yeah, especially like if the album hasn't been released yet and stuff like it. Yeah, you're like contacting the manager or the producer and saying, hey, I need like a pre-release of the,
It's crazy, man, because now this is instantly, and you can put, your buds in, and you can hear stereo and hear every part, and
and they can send you stems if they want like to, that, where you just hear. So that's a really interesting. Yeah. So you're playing with a major artist who's on RCA Records, and he's sitting you down on the back of the bus and saying, hey, you need to listen to these tracks, because I'm sure you were playing fine on it, but you weren't playing, exactly what was on the record, and that was what. A lot of acts want it to be, because people know those songs.
And I have one of my fondest memories. It was right after I started, West One Radio. Remember West One Radio? Yeah. And there was a recording of Keith Whitley in Burlington, North Carolina, and it was the classic country Saturday, I want to say. It was kind of rainy. It was outdoors at kind of outdoors gig, gazebo stage. You've seen it. You've played it. And it was with, I can't think of the guy's name. I know that Bruce Brown, who's a guitarist. Do you know Bruce played with Charlie Daniels for years and years?
Yeah.
Mel McDaniels, I think, was the name.
Okay.
And Mel was the act, and also Newgrass Revival.
Yeah.
So Keith's on the bus with Newgrass Revival guys, and it was classic country days, man. So we played like 3 or 4 songs and brought Keith up, kind of thing, Show business, man.
Yeah.
And he came out there and just did that recording. There was a recording of it, and it's how it is when you duplicate, and it gets high-endy and all this stuff. But it's still incredible because he did a clinic on how to be a great country singer.
Yeah.
Because those boys, Sam Bush and those cats were there, and he just did a show for them, and it was absolutely incredible. But he also, in that, what I'm getting at was, and also in that, when he introduced me in the band, he did it with love, and he said, man, we're really loving it. I think he really meant it, and it was a heartfelt thing that sticks with me, So, but getting back to the, was something that I learned early on, and I still stand by this. It's like, be prepared, be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. And it was like, we were doing a show with Dwight Yoakam, and it was on the USS Independence aircraft carrier in San Diego. And it was Miami, Miami, that first song. And I think we started with that song or something like that. So I wasn't quite ready for that when they called Keith Whitley, and there was a capo on the first fret, and and all these things, and I pretty much dropped the ball and showed my ass a little bit, and so
that was a good lesson.
Move on ahead. You don't catch me doing that.
Yeah.
I'll cover my bases, man. So
yeah. So on those records, on the Whitley records, you had like Brent Rowan, you had Billy Sanford, and you had Brent Mason. Those were kind of the 3 guitar players on there, and they kind of, of course, Strats and Chorus, was kind of like the big thing, except for I guess Brent did some more of the Telecaster thing with some, little pop in the strings a little more. But like, what gear were you using out with Whitley?
I had I still have it. it was a red Eric Clapton Strat.
Yeah.
That I just bought brand new, and because I'm a huge Clapton fan,
Yeah.
and got that guitar. I had 11s on it, and also I was playing the Mesa Boogie Mark IIB head and a 112 cabinet, open back, and I don't recall if there was much more into that. It was like straight up. It wasn't like there was pedals and,
Yeah.
you know, it was straight.
You didn't have like a rack unit, like a GP8 or one of those, you know,
Nope.
something to get.
Nope.
So you just play like Miami. You just played it without the chorus.
No,
on
there
it?
has to
Yeah.
be chorus in there. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to figure out where that chorus was or what it was. It must have been probably a blue Boss chorus or something, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
And I had a tuner, and so.
yeah.
But not a whole lot. But it's great. It was really good, and I really enjoyed it. And there's a recording of us on Nashville Now doing. I think it was "I'm No Stranger to the Rain," where I'm playing acoustic guitar, and then I looked like a pack mule because they would.
Yes.
I'd have the guitar, and I'd set one guitar down and roll this other guitar up into place, and I
So you could play Billy Sanford's solo. Yeah,
play the solo, put it back down, pick the guitar back up.
I love that.
Yeah.
So was that just something that that Keith couldn't pull off that because I think it was like a McAnally acoustic part on that.
That was the one that when he, that's another case of how you just have to, you hit the ground running when someone asks you to do something.
Yeah.
So we were doing 2 shows in Houston. I hadn't been around very long, and then he was doing that intro.
Yeah.
So we get on the bus, and he goes, after the first show, he goes, Toomey, you got it. You play it.
Yeah. Because I mean, as the singer, entertainer, frontman, sometimes you're just like, I can't, I need someone to take this weight off of me, and I totally get that.
And it was pre-hip shot.
Yeah.
So this was I had a banjo tuner on the back of my Takamine. You know.
Yeah.
But
With the little stop on it.
I still got it.
Yeah. So, is it amazing to you that people still talk about Keith Whitley to this day, and his songs keep coming around? Where, I mean, my kids that are like 14, 16 years old, they listen to Keith Whitley.
Right.
And they, and like Miami had like this whole like TikTok thing where it was like, it got to be really popular again. Does it kind of blow your mind that Keith Whitley had this short career where he had like 3 records, one released after he died, and then it was just how he just...
If you knew Keith and you heard Keith up close and personal, which is on buses and at his house, you got it. Like I said, on that stage at that club in Richmond, Kentucky, you got it real quick.
Yeah.
And, as incredible as his records are, he was even better sitting in front of him with a gut string, smoking a cigarette, singing Tennessee blues, and it would literally, the hair on your arms would stand up, and everybody'd sit around the bus going, "Oh hell," it was like, and that's exactly what it was, And there's nothing surprising to me about what's happening, and I'm just grateful that, people actually have a sense of what's good, and he was good.
He was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it holds up. And I loved it when, again, my 16-year-old son, in his car, in his truck, he's listening to Keith Whitley, and it just kind of blew my mind because, because sometimes, you're working on other stuff, and and then all of a sudden you're reminded of how good, he was. So, were there signs that there was trouble?
Well, let me stop. I want to tell you one thing, though. This is a classic, too. My first time on the Grand Ole Opry, and my father, he loved country music. And that was one of the things, too, that he was a truck driver by trade. And he transported thoroughbreds up in Lexington for a company. And I would ride in the cab of a truck since I was a kid. So truck stops and the smell of diesel has been in my life a long time,
Yeah.
And so when I got on the Grand Ole Opry, I don't think he knew I was his son till that.
Yeah,
then he went, "I kind of like that boy.
Yeah.
Who is he?
He's okay."
I've been feeding him for
Yeah.
So we did the Opry, and with Keith and Carson, we were doing Miami, and Carson goes, "Hey Lou, why don't you use this Rockman? Put this Rockman." You know how the Opry is; it's a run and gun, man, and there's no time to debate sound.
Yeah.
Plug in, start playing.
Yeah.
And I learned how to maneuver that in my experience.
You have to.
But I had this Rockman of Carson's hanging on my belt, and then out of that going into the amp,
Yeah.
to get that chorus sound on the fly.
Yeah.
And we're out there, and there's little Jimmy Dickens, and he's standing in the circle, and he's introducing Keith, and all of a sudden that pack falls and hits the deck, and it's so, the Opry is so quiet when someone's talking.
Yeah.
And it hit the deck, and it goes, kaboom! And I was like, oh, shit. And my dad, he goes, what the hell happened?
What happened to you, son?
But yeah, so that was my first Opry story with Keith. But
Yeah.
I mean, you were saying.
I was saying, yeah, I mean, you don't want to belabor, the negative side but I mean, because it sounded like he was pretty secretive with his drinking, at least the thing. But were there signs that are just like this? He's troubled.
Well, for me, I mean, come on, man. I was working at a hardware store playing R&B on the weekends. I was blown away to get the gig.
Yeah.
It was because I know how. I mean, you're either going to be a virtuoso, Brent Mason, and you come to Nashville, and everybody goes, "Hey, man." Of course, Brent worked his ass off. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
But or you have an in, and I knew Keith was an in. I knew I was a capable player, but that was my in. So when I got that gig, and I was blown away, and I remember a car ride that I did with a couple of the band guys that I got informed, because I really didn't know anything about this with this drinking issue. I had no clue, and it was like, oh, hell.
Letting all the air out.
Yeah, and so I didn't really notice it. It was too busy for the whole learning curve for me, and then when he got his second bus, that was I got a great story to tell too with the guitar trade.
Yeah.
And this is back before he's got his own bus, and we have the band bus, and we're on the band bus. Everybody at the same time. That's before the second bus, and I had this 50, and I don't have it with me today, but it's a 52 reissue Telly, and it was probably an 83 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I bought that at the hardware store. I had a guy show up and pulled across. It was probably hot as hell. I don't know.
Yeah.
I paid $200 for it.
Yeah.
That might be an indication of it.
Could be
in the
hot.
parking lot across the street.
I paid $10 for the pistol, officer.
And I've got that guitar, and that guitar, I told my daughter, I said, you can get rid of anything we have, but that guitar, you might want to hang on to it just for the,
Yeah.
not that it's worth anything. Everything I own's been touched by me, and there's nothing pristine or go, ooh, it's never been changed. Nothing.
Yeah.
I've soldered everything and done it.
Yeah.
So that guitar, we're on the bus, and we're riding down the road going to a gig, and I looked at Carson, and Carson Chamberlain had an old 50s Telly. It'd been through a fire, kind of, and it was, if I'm not mistaken, rosewood neck, and I was just screwing with him, man. I said, hey, Carson, why don't you trade? I'll trade you guitars, man. I'll trade you at 50. It's nice and clean and new, and that old beat-up thing you got. And he goes, yeah, right. And Keith goes, I'll trade you. And Keith had a 67, I think it was a 67, Telly rosewood neck, and Randy, the guitar player, painted it blue.
Yeah, he was photographed with it on a couple. Yeah, on
matches boots.
Yeah,
and he had I think it was a KW pickguard on it, maybe. And so Keith goes, I'll trade you. I said, okay. And I traded him, and I had a guitar. And I go home during, it was like December or something like that, and I stripped that guitar. Sorry, Randy. And I stripped that guitar. I stripped all the finish off of it and just refinished it naturally. And I think I put EMGs in it, and I took it back out on the road, and he goes, oh, my God, I love it. I love it. And he just loved that guitar. And he goes, then he kept trying to trade me back.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll trade you back. I'll give you $300, your guitar back, and I got another guitar at home. So I remember when we were leaving to go on the road one weekend, he goes, come on inside with me, and went in the house where him and Lori lived. And he showed me a G and L. Said, I'll give you this guitar, $300 and your guitar back. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to, because I just worked my ass off on that guitar, you know?
Yeah.
And so, that long story short, I finally did it. It was towards the end of his, he was already on his own bus. And I think he'd been drinking, you know, there's some of that stuff was happening. And I just walked over. I said, hey, man, I'll just trade you back. Give me mine, you take yours. And he did. And then Keith died. And that guitar was not seen again. And I remember asking Lori about this. I think this was in 2015. I said, whatever happened to that guitar that Keith had? She said, we don't know what happened to that blue guitar. They were thinking it was the blue one. So no telling where that guitar went.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know it had been refinished. And, you know, it didn't have the KW pickguard on it and all this other things, but that's where that guitar. So, yeah.
So how did you find out that Keith had passed?
We played Brazoria's. I think it's Brazoria, Texas. It was one of those.
Yeah.
You played it too. You've seen them.
Oh, I've seen Brazoria.
Flat top metal building. Mexican for lunch. Who would have figured?
Yeah.
We never left the venue. We stayed there all day. It was a classic, and so that was the last gig. We're on stage. I had my red Strat. We're on stage, and I'm doing the swap over, you know, on "Stranger to the Rain," and I knocked my guitar over, and Keith just laughed his ass off. He just thought it was so funny, and we get back on the bus. We go to the hotel since we dropped him off and some other guys. And I remember seeing him standing in front of the bus. It was an old white eagle named, I don't know if they didn't have a name, but because Ronnie's bus has a name called Pearl. And I always think of that, you know, Ronnie Dunn, and I think of white buses and everything's called Pearl. I don't know. And so he's standing out there. He flies home, we drive home. This was a Saturday night, so we got home on Sunday, and we were leaving out on a Thursday. We were leaving out the next week. My daughter and I arrived, we just came from the bank, and it's rainy, and I've got the seat laid back, and my daughter, she's a small child at that point, and she's laying back in the seat, taking a, napping, and I'm listening to country radio, and they announced his death. And I just barely could get the window rolled down, you know. Yeah, so that was how I found out.
Were you living in Nashville at this point?
I was living in Lexington.
In Lexington still. Yeah. And so you're in Lexington, and you hear on the radio that he has passed away.
Yes.
Yeah. So
everything changed at that point. You know, it's crazy how, and I've said this, that loss, depending on what decade of your life you're in, is a different ballgame, because obviously the older you get, the more you've lost. And so you have this, you can be a little bit more guarded against it, But then it was just this, I lost the gig that I just, incredible for me. And then, a friend too that I missed.
That you had known for a while.
Yeah, I'd known him for a while, but I can't say we were really close friends. But, it's what working relationships are, so.
Yeah.
But, that's how I found out.
So now you're out of work.
Yeah, and it was classic. Jeff King, God bless him. And I love that big goofball. I remember him sending me something. I was going to Rivera, rack-mounted Rivera stereo rig with two 112 cabinets, and there was something to do with the load. You had to put it on a load or something like that for something.
Yeah, to slave it or whatever.
Yeah. And Jeff, in the goodness of his heart, because he's a sweet-hearted man, sent me that. He got it at Techstar from Dave Wilkerson. Mm-hmm. And that's just, who Jeff is. So, yeah, that's started doing that. I auditioned for Shelley West and David Frizzell.
Yeah.
And I remember that was a classic too, because it was a cassette tape, and I listened to their stuff and learned their stuff. And I remember that day going down and pulling in the alley behind SIR at Fifth Avenue, and I did the audition, and just what it was. And I remember when I got over the bridge, the bridge going over the Cumberland, as the split comes, and you can see the Bat Building, and whatever that is, and
Yeah.
And I remember taking that tape and just flinging that son of a bitch out the window into the river. It's like, I never want to hear this again.
You're the reason God made Oklahoma.
Yeah, not anything pertinent against
Yeah.
them, but yeah. So I had some auditions like that. I auditioned for Trisha.
Yeah.
Garth got me an audition for Trisha
Garth
Yearwood.
Fundus.
Yeah, and it didn't work out. And it's a classic case. When you really need it, you ain't gonna get it.
Yeah.
That's just a fact. There's a physics thing in there somehow where the harder you try, the less you'll get.
The more desperate you are,
Yeah,
the more you're going to get denied.
Yeah. I remember a dude auditioning for Faith one time, and he was a fiddle player, and he did the same thing. He was like, man, he just took me and said, I got to have this gig. I've got, and it was so sad of a story, but it was like,
Yeah.
sorry, dude, you ain't going to get this gig.
Yeah.
This is not the route to do it. But so it was that. I started doing audition stuff, and and still, I was driving back and forth from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And then I got a phone call one day from Scott Hendricks, and Scott said, "Hey, man, my name's Scott Hendricks. I produce records and stuff. Telling me who he was. I kind of knew who he was, and I had this girl that I'm working with, and you've been recommended to me, and you want to come down?" And I did. So I went down and auditioned for Faith, and I went home to Diane. I said, "My God, I doubt if I get this gig. I don't really care at this point." I said, "But she was beautiful." And she is beautiful, and I love her dearly. But yeah, that's how it transitioned into that. So.
And her career blew up really quick.
Yeah, it was 4 number ones right out of the gate,
Yeah.
And that was a lot for 94, 95.
Yeah.
And all that.
So how long was the drought in between Whitley and Faith?
Faith was the fall of 93.
Okay.
So Keith died in 89.
Wow.
So
What'd you do in that time period?
suffered,
Yeah.
basically just trying to find work, playing
Yeah.
gigs. Everything else, I did work with, James House. I don't know if you know him, but
Yeah,
James is a
songwriter,
very talented
artist,
man.
yeah.
And worked with James, and just different acts, man, just different stuff that I could pull off,
Yeah.
And
So then
because when you're in Lexington, the reality of it is if you're not in the 615 area,
Yeah.
you're just really not here.
So when did you finally make the jump and move to Nashville?
Oh, it was it was probably the 96, 97, something like that, maybe.
So after you'd been working with Faith
Yeah.
for a couple of years.
After I made that drive down so many times, and
Yeah.
I'm sure I have the date wrong because Diane right now is probably at home going,
Yeah, she's going to correct.
told you.
I told you started that in 90.
Yeah, whatever.
Or whatever.
But yeah, we moved to Nashville, and
Yeah.
So
So then again, just
Oh,
like
I'm going to tell you too.
Yes.
Oh, this is a great story. And there's, in the interim, Jeff King, my friend who I just got to, did the gig with, the B&D gig with, and he calls me up, and I needed the work. And he goes, "Hey, man, I got this. I'm not going to do it. I got asked to do this." And it's a guy named Doug Kershaw. And I'd never really heard Doug Kershaw. I knew nothing about Doug Kershaw.
Yeah.
And he said, "Do you want to do it?" And yeah, I have a young daughter at home, and yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the tickets were shipped to me the next day. Courier brings it to the front door. I get on a plane. I've never heard one song of Doug's, and I did hear him eventually. But so I get on and then the story is what I love, because all this is about stories. It's not about the gigs, And so got off the plane in Denver, picked up by the tour manager guy or the road manager, whatever you call him, piano player. And we drove to Doug's place in Greeley, Colorado, where that's the first time I knew nothing about Doug and still hadn't heard any of the music that I'm going to play the next day, which was classic. But I did get hammered with Al from Home Improvement and also the county assessor on Green Acres. They were at this his golf tournament. So did that, and the next day I walked, do the gig, and long story short, after I did the first gig, first weekend, it was a casino, I wanted to quit. But the band dudes were all like going, oh, come on, man, don't quit. Come on. Yeah. You can do it. And hang in there, hang in. And I hung in there for 3 months, and because the last gig was in Mount Fuji. It was Charlie Nagatini.
Yes, yeah, Nagatani.
Nagatani, the Country Heart Festival.
Yes.
And it was my last show was there. But we were on, Texas Tornadoes were on it. And this is what I'm getting at. The Texas Tornadoes. And I got to hang out with Flacco and Doug Somm and Freddie Fender and be around all that greatness, which was a load of it, man. And I also had breakfast with Porter Wagner just Porter and myself, and him trying to order an American breakfast in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And that was a trip.
That's worth a lot.
Yeah, it's worth it, man. That's that. Well, I wouldn't be bringing up Doug Kershaw. Nothing personal, Doug.
Yeah.
But,
So again, and with Faith, her career, of course, blows up, even more than Whitley, and you're doing, all the TV shows, and you're doing, of course, you've done Austin City Limits with Whitley, and you're doing, and you did Letterman, and you have a good story about playing Letterman with Faith.
Oh my God, yeah, because we early on, the Faith. And God, I love that woman so much. I just saw her the other day. A friend of ours passed, and so she was at the Celebration of Life, and she and I just love her. I told her, I said, she's the reason I told her, I said, you're the reason I'm standing here, really, And of course, she's such a kind heart. But so we did Take Me As I Am, and Take Me As I Am had that whatever that intro is on that, And so we're doing it it was just myself, because when artists come on the Letterman show that were new, they played with the house band.
Right.
And we'd already done, I think we'd been up there and done a Wild One with them. And then the second time we were up there was Take Me As I Am. I've got the intro, I've got the solo, and I've got the out. So I had a rental twin from SR, and I had a tube screamer, and I didn't have a tuner. It was the guy tuned it, the house tech tuned it, and it was all set up, and sound check was fine, and I did it, and it was great. But showtime came, and the 2-minute changeover to walk out and get into place to do Take Me As I Am, and I go out there, and the amp is dead, the light's on, the amp's dead. Next thing you know, it's every cable's being changed out, now it's 60 seconds and 40 seconds, and now I see Letterman over there, and I think it was Elle McPherson or something like that, and then finally I reached back in the back of the amp. We couldn't get it to go, and reached back, and the tubes were cold. So whatever, it had a malfunction somewhere in the amp. It's a Fender reissue twin, I think, probably, or something like that, from SR, and at that point I just turned around and said, ladies and gentlemen, Faith Hill. And then they kicked into that, and they had the drum pickup, and then I come in and there's no guitar, but I faked the hell out of it, air guitared it, and got to at the show. And the irony of it is, I walked off the stage and I'm immediately frantic, going, "Hey man, I need to borrow an amp. I need to overdub this guitar." They were like, "You sounded great, man." I'm oh, I need an amp.
Yeah.
So walk back out. We talked to the engineer. His name is Michael. And he goes, "Man, it won't match up." And I said, "It'll match up." I pretty much, played exactly what I would have played. So that's what happened. I got up there. I was in the Ed Sullivan Theater by myself with the monitor engineer up in the seats, and I bummed the smoke from him, and had a mix coming back in the monitors, and they counted it off. The amp did work then. I think had to kick it or spit on it or something. And then that's how I overdubbed on Letterman's show, and got to sit down with him. Me and the steel player Gary Carter. We sat down with him during the editing and mixing of the show too. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite memories of playing with Faith?
God, I don't know, man.
You got to play a lot of big venues, and I mean that was
Yeah.
it was a big step up from Whitley.
Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
The 4th of July deal where you played whatever a running total is, 500,000 people or whatever, the symphony, that kind of thing. I don't know if that was one that I would say it's the best gig I'd ever played or anything like that, but there's so many gigs that they run together. It's kind of hard to have the benchmark gig, but we did play Madison Square, and that was a big place to play.
Yeah.
And she went over great, and Faith's music was always just really great stuff,
So, at a certain point, Dan Huff takes over, and of course her sound, changes along with that. Then all of a sudden you're kind of covering Dan Huff and other people's, guitar parts and covering other sounds. And it's just one of those things you just roll with punches, and all of a sudden you do whatever you have to do to get those other sounds and learn the parts.
Dan Huff, what a beautiful man he is, and his playing is incredible. And, that whole, I was just telling Dana, we're talking about this little baby pick I got here, and I've only got it because I want to try to make my right hand better. But when I hear Dan, Dan would play, of course he was incredible. The Giant, that band, I remember the first time I heard Dan singing and playing the stuff that he played was incredible. So, move on ahead to Dan's stuff, and I've never been one to, maybe it's because I just didn't have the capability to replicate exactly the way the record goes, because I don't really like that anyway, but because I think you need to make music, and I think there's a part of the brain that turns off when you don't actually make music, if you just replicate what this part of the other side wants to do, you have to learn, you have to play. And but Dan's playing was like great, but I've had the ability to, maybe it's because I can sell it, not to play note for note, but some of Dan's solos, especially on those, the Breathe albums and stuff like that, was just freaking smoking, man. And what a great ear, what a great player, and my time around him's always been really wonderful. So,
yeah. So tell me how the Faith Hill kind of gig kind of winds down, because of course she starts kind of getting more into acting and doing some other things. So, but how does that kind of wind down?
The way it wound down was, let's see here, that was the end of, so 2000 was her, it was just, she'd had Gracie, her first child, her and Tim did, and I've got a great story on that too. But when I wore a dress on stage and surprised Tim, and if you see me in a dress, it's a surprise.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
But that was early on in the romancing department, and but it was winding down. We did it's just what happens. The gig ended up slowing down, and it was going to be, she's going to be off the road and that kind of thing. So that was 2000. And she called me up and said, "Hey, man, will you do David Letterman with? Will you do not will you do Saturday Night Live with me?
Yeah.
And at the time, she had Dan on playing guitar, Michael Thompson, Paul Bushnell, and Vinny playing drums.
Yeah.
And Vinny couldn't do the Saturday Night Live, so they got Trey Gray to come in and play drums on it. And but yeah, so that was the last gigs with her that I did. And we did the Today Show outside, and so yeah, I'm playing between Dan and Michael Thompson. Yeah, yeah,
That's good. That's good. Yeah, that's high cotton, as it
it's
were.
high cotton for sure.
Yeah. So, how long between that and getting the call from Brooks and Dunn?
It was immediate because, well, first we played a gig up in we had some time off La Crosse, Wisconsin,
Oh yeah.
and we were one of those days off, and we're down in the hotel bar, and there's a pool table, and Ronnie Dunn. We'd been opening up shows for Brooks and Dunn and those guys, and the contrast between a female artist and a male artist was never so clear as it was in those days. You know what I mean? Because guys, crowds, girls, women, you have great music, and it was great music.
Yeah.
But so that's where Ronnie and Kixie both heard me play, and Ronnie made a comment. And that night we're playing pool, something about, man, I'm gonna steal your guitar player and your drummer. And Trey was playing with us.
Yeah.
And that's how. So as Faith's gig ended, the phone rang, and it was a friend of mine named Jeff Kershaw. I don't know if you know Jeff Kershaw.
Yeah.
Jeff Kershaw goes back to in the horn band I was playing in. He was roadieing, and he was just a kid. And then he got involved. I think it was through the Clarence Spalding Exile band connection to Clarence, and Clarence was managing them, and then he went into working with B&D. And then Charlie Crow was the other guitar player that played with Brooks and Dunn early in the the 90s.
Yeah.
And Charlie and I knew each other from Lexington because we're both Lexington, Kentucky boys. So phone rings, and it's Jeff, and he said, Ronnie Dunn wants to talk to you. I said, about what? He goes, about doing this gig. So I said, because Charlie was doing it. What am I going to do,
Yeah.
And but he did. I ended up starting with Brooks and Dunn, and I ended up being I was the utility guy in the back, basically. I was the guy that if you need tremolo guitar stuff, Charlie was doing more show business stuff out front. So then I'd be playing slide, and I'd be playing baritone and any kind of specialty thing. And I was a big boy in the back, and it was fine because, all paid the same. And that's how I started, and that's,
So how did it change? Because of course, eventually, Tony King also was he already there?
Tony King was there. It was Scotty Hawkins, who's gone now, and probably the most musical drummer I ever played with in my life. And there's a lot of them I've played with. But yeah, so what was the question again?
I guess Tony King, and then eventually, when was it that they called it quits? I mean, how long were you with them before they kind of
Charlie gave his notice. His last show was when Brooks and Dunn opened up for the Stones, Rolling Stones in Omaha.
Okay.
Which was incredible.
Yeah.
We didn't get a sound check.
Yeah.
But I do remember walking up on stage, and after doing this for quite a while, and still be in awe of that stage, and then guy goes, "Hey Lou, somebody knows my name here in the Rolling Stone camp," and it was he was an artist relations guy for Fender up in New York, and I can't think of his name, but he was teching for Keith.
Okay.
He goes, "Come with me. You want to see all Keith's stuff?"
Yeah.
So we went back and looked at all of his Tweed Twins and his guitars and
Blackguards and tellies.
It was incredible, and so that was Charlie's last gig. Ronnie was. Then when they were thinking about they would need another guitar player,
Yeah.
and once again the ego comes into picture, and I sent Ronnie a message, and I was like, hey man, I do this. I am a electric guitar player. That's what I do. And long story short, they had auditions, and it was not a fair shake for whoever came in and auditioned because I've been playing this gig for a while, so I knew the turf.
Yeah.
And when they finished the auditions, they said, hey man, we're not going to hire another guitar player. It's going to be Lou, and everybody gets a raise.
Nice.
And that's how that started. And so that's when the transition happened to just be me doing it. And also I dropped the pounds too. I was a big boy. I've always been a big guy. And hair was grown out, and I wore rock and roll stand. This is after our association with, when you guys with Brad. And
that was like 2002 or 3 or something around there. Yeah.
So then I did that, and more because one thing I've definitely learned from both these guys, and which I dearly respect and care for, is Brooks is a nonstop performer, and if you're standing around looking at your feet, you're not going to be around long because this is all about show business.
Yeah,
and that's it is lights and camera, and I fought that for years because I wanted to stand around, look at my pedals, and kick on things, and you don't have time to do that in the show business world. So that's one thing, and of course Ronnie Dunn's, being the most incredible soul blues singer, country singer there is.
He's one of the greatest country singers.
Yeah.
I think of like Ronnie and Vince as being kind of like the best singers that that are still living.
True. And I often said, I've told that to RD a lot. I was like, man, I've been very fortunate to work with two great country singers, and you're one of them.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard him really sing country was when they did, and I was on Faith and I did an acoustic tour of radio shows over in London and then also Ireland, and we were riding this day coach with Del McCrory and those guys. And then Scott was with us, Hendrix, and he said, "Here, you want to hear some of this new Brooks and Dunn stuff?"
Oh,
and
I forgot.
Hello, Heartache.
Yeah.
That is so incredible country song. And Ronnie Dunn, that to me was his country voice,
Yeah.
And so learned a lot from him.
Yeah, you've hit this, and this is something a lot of musicians don't think about. They don't think about the fact that they're in the entertainment business.
Yes.
And they don't think about their appearance, the way they dress, and like interacting with the crowd and all these other things. And so you kind of got a lesson in that from.
Yes. I did. I got a big lesson.
Yeah.
And I still utilize it today as much as I can. We've been doing these shows and with this new artist guy and who's selling out arenas. I'm not arenas, stadiums, 2 days in a row. And they've got this gigantic, I call it the ego ramp, where you go, it's literally, it looks like it's 50 yards out to the center.
Yes.
And every time I go out on that thing, man, I'm like, son of a bitch. I can't believe I got to go out there with all these kids looking at grandpa go down the ramp. But, that's just what you have to do, and that's show business.
It is.
And you have to smile. And when I started back with Kix and Ronnie, I got it even more. I mean, and it was I almost equated it to like when I'd see when Paul McCartney, when he had that DVD out in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And the crowd and the people out there literally teared up and, so emotional about these songs, which I am too, because that's my generation of stuff, But I try to view those people that way, that it's not a matter of, I got to look tough. This is about, I want to make you smile. I want to smile to you, and let's have fun with this, And then it's all the mechanics of the business that can get in the way of that smile sometimes when your shit doesn't work or something's not working right,
So, but to kind of go back a little bit, Brooks and Dunn kind of called it quits for a while,
Yeah.
and Ronnie did a solo thing, which you continued to play with him, and then, I mean, amazingly enough, they got back together again, and then you were asked to come back with them, which
Well-
was like, I mean, did you think there was going to be like this, kind of second act of the band? Of
I have
Brooks
no
and
clue.
Dunn?
They don't even know that. They're blown away by it themselves. They're literally going, "Oh my God!" And really, they're probably as big as they've ever been.
Right. Because, again, I've got teenage kids. I mean, this was a couple of years ago. They're listening to, Hard Working Man and all these, all the Brooks and Dunn stuff, and they're way into it.
Right.
And it was just like, what is going on here? Because it's like, I wasn't listening to my parents' music. I mean, there were times where I'd listen to Aretha Franklin or something like that, but I wasn't listening to it all the time. My kids were listening to Brooks and Dunn and
crazy,
Keith Whitley
isn't
and
it?
all this stuff and just loving, and they would listen to modern stuff also.
Right.
But that's right in there with it, and it
Yeah.
just blows my mind that Brooks and Dunn are having this, like, I don't know, what is this, a second, third act? I don't know. Yeah.
And it's incredible. And it really is. And the tour goes on again next year, and we're going to go to Europe, and then we're going to do more shows and more arenas and sold out crowds, and people are singing their songs. And Kix will ask, we'll ask the crowd at some point, "Hey man," and sometimes he does, and goes, "Hey, how many is it first time at a Brooks and Dunn show?" And it's literally it looks like it's almost 2/3 of the people,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow.
Yeah. And there's a lot of young
and
people.
they leave it, and I believe they leave it really pleased. It's a good show, and once again, it comes with that experience. That I've got a lot of experience doing this now, but they've got a lot of experience on how to put a show together, and all the ins and outs. And they don't beat it to death, though. That's one thing about Kix and Ronnie. They won't beat it to death. They'll. You either can pull this off or you can't pull it off, and that's just the bottom line.
And
so
and when you can't,
do your homework.
yeah.
We'll count it off, do this, and here we are. And that's, but yeah, it's pretty great.
Yeah. What are some, I mean, you've kind of hit on this some, but is there anything else that you've learned from Ronnie and Kix, that have really kind of changed you or changed the way you perform? And
I think it was just the entertainment factor. They've both been, I think they're fans of my playing, and I think they're fans of real, and I'm real. There's only one version of me, basically. You get this version, and we're not going to get too cork sniffy about it. It's going to, here I am. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And if it's soulful, that's a huge compliment to me. So, and our virtuoso, badass guitar player, Brent Mason said that to me. We did a gig in Key West, and Brent played for Jeff.
Yeah.
And we got a song. Ronnie has a song called "You Don't Know Me," that the classic was it Cindy. Who wrote that? Was it Cindy Walker? Is that?
I think so.
Yeah. And he's done 2 or 3 versions of it on recordings, and I've played all the solos on it. And it's my wheelhouse, that kind of thing, and he knows that too. But we're on that show, and Brent and Ronnie has back-to-back solos, and I got a back-to-back solo with Brent Mason. And it was all right. It was good. I mean, I couldn't barely stand up since I was dehydrated from playing outdoors in Key West with the cowboy hat on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I've learned a lot from both those guys, and I don't think I'm getting off on the wrong answer to the right question, but
That's good. Lou, what advice would you give to somebody that's wanting to move to Nashville and be a guitar player, work for a living?
man, I have no clue what I would tell people anymore. Any young aspiring guitarist. They're probably all much better than I've ever thought I'd ever be, and it's just whether or not you want to. I don't know, man. It's like this. Broadway became a place where people moved to Nashville and played. I only played Broadway because a buddy would ask me, "Hey, you want to go play again on Broadway?" It's like, really? I don't want to play on Broadway.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal against anybody that ever has to work on Broadway, but it's hard ass work.
It is.
You know.
Yeah.
And now it's like if you're not well versed in '80s rock and '90s rock, you're pretty much. It's not your granddad's music anymore.
No,
so.
it's like everything in life.
Right.
Everything's always changing and
Right.
and moving in strange directions. So,
But it's like everything else, like the streaming business, and it's like everything's changed so much. So
Yeah.
what does a guy do when he shows up? I want to ask you, what's a guy do when he shows up to Nashville? What's he aspire to be?
yeah. But I come back to the fact that, like, when I look at your career, I think about the fact that you're a good guy and you met a lot of people and did a good job and you made a lot of relationships, and all those relationships kept paying off. And sometimes it took a little while, but do a good job in this, do a good, the B&D guys, saw you,
Right.
And knew you from playing with Faith Hill. And as soon as, and then you had to be kind of utility guy for a while and watch someone else kind of do most of the solos. And then he moves along and then you get to be the guy. And then, but there's just all these things in which, yeah.
Well, you interview younger dudes that have come to town as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And what's your take from what they tell you? How do they?
I mean, if I'm answering the question and using those interviews as kind of a basis for it, it's they went out and they became part of a scene here in town.
Right.
Like they went out and they would just pester people about, hey, do you need a guitar player?
Right.
And basically they get told no all the time until somebody gets sick, or their kid has to go to the hospital or whatever, and they don't, and they can't show up, or someone quits a gig at the last minute, and all of a sudden it's that thing where you have to, where you went from a complete zero, it's like leave me alone, to you're a hero because I have to have a guitar player tonight
Right.
to play this gig, and that's where they get their foot in the door.
I think about that. Really hasn't changed though. That's been that's basically been what it's about. And I joke with. I made the comment the other day, we're talking about where we live, because we've always lived Franklin and that outer area of Nashville. And, you get off the road traveling, man, and then you're tired, and you also, then so going into Nashville was always, because you have to be there.
Yeah.
You have to be seen and you have to talk to people. And I think that translates from the 80s through up to now. It's still the same story. Maybe it's socials are involved with it now in contact, but it's still the same story. As you have to be seen, you have to be heard, and people have to know. You have to impress somebody at a certain time.
That's right.
To be asked to do something.
Because that's where gigs come from recommendations. Gigs come from some guitar player all of a sudden doesn't show up or quits or like
Right.
that. Who, they're going to ask the other guys in the band,
Well,
who
it's
should
true.
we get? And they're going to say, who they've played with. And, I played with this guy Lou at a jam session. And it's like, let's get him.
Yeah. It's always been the same, though. It's what it is, that you have to be there. And
then once you kind of get in,
Right.
then you kind of, have a reputation, and you don't have to do as much of the going out and being
nobody
seen.
really cares what you've done. Don't be fooled, man.
Yeah.
So.
But, all right. Well, let's talk about gear.
Okay.
So you've, of course, you have this, we already kind of talked about the Keith Whitley era gear where you had, I'm glad that you still have that red Clapton Strat.
Yeah.
That makes me happy, because I remember seeing you on Austin City Limits when that came out. And I was like, who's that big doofus there with the red Clapton? I'm kidding.
That's what my dad said.
Who's that big doofus there with the red? No, I was like, I loved that, because of course, I loved Keith Whitley, and I was like, this, it sounded great. And it was like, Austin City Limits, that's kind of like that was a religion, for me growing up in Texas. I mean, it was like, if you were on Austin City Limits,
I've done it 3 times.
Yeah.
And it's second time I did it with leather on, which, that big boy with leather on.
That's right.
So something else. But yeah, it's gear, man. It's always, and I think probably our connection, in the Brad days for you.
Yeah.
And we crossed paths. It was, it's always talking about gear.
Yeah, and that was, because there's all this time. A lot of people don't realize, unless you've been on the road, you don't realize it's like there's so much waiting around. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's, you're waiting while stuff's being loaded in, and then and then depending on, if you're an opener or whatever else, you wait for a long time, and then it's like, hurry up and get your stuff on there. And then it's like, and then finally it's time to play, and then it's hurry up and get your stuff off the stage. You got 15 minutes to have all your stuff off and things like that. Right. And there's all this time where we're just kind of hanging out. And so I always, it was like, that was, I think we did 40 dates together, something like that. It was a whole summer.
Right.
And so that's how got to know you and got to know, you're a good, serious tone hound and player, and you've always had, great sounding rigs, and I think one of the things you mentioned earlier was you've always been able to kind of nod to the part that was on the record, but yet you've been able to kind of, in your own subtle way, kind of make it your own and do other things, so that you kind of have to do that to kind of keep your sanity and to keep it being soulful, being musical, so that it doesn't just end up being, okay, I'm exactly mimicking someone else. It's like having to mimic someone else's, all their mannerisms, and
they don't even remember what they did.
Yeah, of course.
So that gets back to that right brain, left brain kind of thing, because it's like, you can getting into a real fast solo / whatever. Say Brent played whatever at some point in time, and now you have to play that solo. Now, when you screw that up, which part then you have to make music, and your brain goes, well, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Because we're supposed to go here now. We don't go there, and what happened? And therein lies, make it yours, own it. And when something fails, you can keep on playing, because it becomes obvious at that point.
One thing that, so I went and saw y'all last year at the San Antonio Rodeo, and a lot of the songs you did very similar to the original recording. But there was one song y'all did kind of a different arrangement to. It was like, I think it was Hard Working Man.
It was Hard Working Man.
And it was like, and I really love the original recording with Brent doing his part, but then y'all came up with another arrangement that I liked just as much and didn't miss the other one. Where did things like that? Where did that come from?
Reboot, the Reboot Brooks Dunn record.
Yeah,
and I think they cut that, and I think it was the dude from was it
Brothers Osborne?
Yeah, Brothers Osborne. Okay. I don't know the dude, but. It's got that. It's a low drop tuning, and we've turned it into a big old, show business event and kind of a rockish thing,
Yeah. Well, it was interesting, because I didn't remember that on the reboot, because I heard the reboot, but y'all kind of kept to the original, kind of honored the originals and everything, but that was the one where y'all kind of did and it was. Yeah, it was nice.
Well, we honored. It's still, everything has more kick to it than the recordings do, and
that's again.
And those records too, those early records, the Brooks Dunn records were. I always said they were up higher frequency wise. It wasn't all about the bottom end and kicks and just that subish bass sounds. It was more sparkly top end, Brent.
Yeah.
And acoustic guitars and. As it's developed and got more, a little bit more rocking, and but it just evolves. And I think those performances, they're wide open, man. If it works, if it sounds good to them, hey, let's do it. Do that. And
it is interesting how because part of that's again, it's the entertainment business.
Yeah.
And it's like, and sometimes you find out that other things work better, especially if you're going to want to rock the crowd more.
Yeah.
And listening especially to the early Brooks and Dunn, there's stuff that's kind of honky-tonk, but then there's stuff that just, that's very kind of Sons of the Desert Eagles. Like You're gonna miss me when I'm gone. I mean, it's peaceful.
I love that song.
and it's a great song. But I mean, it's like it's peaceful, easy feeling.
Yeah,
you know,
it
it's
is.
like
It
it's
is.
like one of the many children that have been begat by that song, and the Eagles, which were fantastic and super influential, and that song goes over great.
Oh man, I love that song. Every night when it kicks, I'm like, because I'm out on the top, so I just get to sit back and enjoy that pocket,
Yeah.
But it's beautiful. And speaking of that, Glenn Johns, have you seen the interview, his stuff, and you read his book yet?
I haven't read his book.
His book's cool, and more stuff I learned about him and the Eagles too, or his take on, because you always hear these different versions of what people say about, the Eagles said about him and whatever.
Right.
But he, what a great real performance. That's what it's all about,
Yeah.
Sorry, got off on something else.
All right, let's get back to gear. So of course, your gear has changed through years, and you've done like more rack, and you had some complex setups like during the Faith Hill era, and then with B&D, you've mainly used amps, pedal boards, and vintage style guitars, and that's kind of been your thing. How have going back out on the road with Brooks and Dunn recently? How has your rig changed? Have you had times where you've had to go ampless or anything like that?
No.
Are you still using amps? And
oh yeah. When I started back, I had a cabinet on stage, which was with some plexi in front of it, and of course that didn't last but one tour, and then it ended up being put back in the box, which I don't like, but at the same time, I give that all up now. It used to bother me so bad, because it's just what it is. It's no different than ear monitors. I dislike ear monitors, and it's one of the reasons why I can't hear anymore.
Yeah.
It's because I've cranked them up so loud to get over, when you're on a live stage and you have a side fill as big as most people's PAs, and it's cranking on your, you have to get over it, all those things. So, yeah, that's how, and I try to keep it simple. I have 2 amps on the road. One is backup, and I'm using a high-powered Tweed Twin.
Nice.
And I just love the way Fender amps sound. I like, whether it's one of the, it was a Bonamassa version of it, and I really like that amp. I mean, I like playing it on that gig. It's a loud amp, but that never seemed to bother me. You know?
Do you load it down or do anything like that?
No loading down.
Yeah.
Run about maybe 3, 3.5, 4 on both sides, and
Yeah.
And then it's simple stuff. Pedal board's rather simple, and I catch because the B&D thing a lot of times, and I know that if you move on up to another world, the pop rock world, there'll be somebody back there switching for you or whatever.
Yeah.
Everything's done by me, and and that's the deal. It's like you might almost have to find a working tone that you can go out front and turn up solo, and then back up, and still not be back at looking at your pedals.
Yeah.
There's no time to look at pedals.
Right.
Except tuning.
Yeah.
If you have to tune.
Because you're an entertainer.
Yeah. You might have to hit something, but other than that, it's going to happen fast, and it's a very worked out, in your mind it is. It better be worked out.
Yeah.
But getting back to me and gear in general, I mean, I've always had this love for tweaking. And my first love was, I think I joke about this, my first toy was a screwdriver, and I would tear crap apart and then, try to put it back together and tear something up and do all that stuff. So when I got into guitars, and then also financially, it's like, I could take this and have it refretted by somebody, and then I learned to refret myself.
Right.
And so
you were the first serious guitar player that I knew that started really taking care of everything on their guitar. Like a lot of people would do their own setups and stuff like that, but then when it came to nut work, fret work, they'd be like, I'm going to take it to Glazer or whoever. And you were the first, again, playing with big acts that you're just like, I'm going to figure this stuff out myself, and I'm going to do it myself.
Well, I should have been playing.
Yeah.
Should have been playing more, but I have this thing about I get sidetracked on tearing crap apart, and I'm trying not to cuss because I got told when I left the house, don't cuss.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want to do. Yeah.
Sound like a junkyard, a counter guy.
Yeah.
Get that damn thing out of my way.
Get that now.
Yeah, whatever. But I always was. I've always worked on stuff and done that, and I still love it. And almost to a fault. And So.
And also you've put together, obviously not the Les Paul, but I'm assuming a lot of these are things that you've put together yourself, and you've mixed and matched and done parts casters. And I know you've done that through forever.
All my stuff is parts of some sort. Like I said, nothing's pristine. Nothing's when you have to sell this one day, anybody that's listening, good luck.
Yeah,
because they're going to go, it's not worth much, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a guitar that I bought the body back in the late '90s, and it's had so many different necks on it. And then I found this neck. Of course, Fender was very kind, and this road worn Strat neck. And then I repainted it because the first time I never painted one before, and this is the guitar I painted the first time. And
you did a great job. This ain't
no hobby.
Yeah, that is a great Mary Kay, kind of desert sand in between those. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So it was one of those things of just trial and error, and I like the way this neck turned out. I like the way this guitar sounds. These are Cradle Rock pickups by Seymour.
Okay.
And once again, it's got the Bonamassa connection, which is fine with me because Bonamassa's got huge ears, man, and they're kind of vetted through him.
Yeah,
and that's not a bad thing.
It's hard to go wrong. I mean, he is a serious tone hound.
I know
any pickup or any piece of gear that he has his name on is going to be good stuff.
But you know how it is when you can have multiple necks on a guitar until you find the right one.
That's right.
Ask Clapton.
Yeah,
I mean he did that.
He did that with Blackie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no, it's true, and I've gotten much more into the parts caster thing because one, you find out that that's what people did back in the 50s and 60s and 70s with Fenders specifically. If we're talking about parts casters, is they would the guitars weren't that expensive, and you'd get 50s or 60s Strats or Tellys. And you'd swap around stuff until you found, the right neck and the right body. And nowadays, there's so many good parts manufacturers that, you can go get a road-worn neck or a Music Craft neck if you really want to get fancy, and you can swap out necks until you find the right neck with the right body, and then you get the right pickups in there. And it's a lot of tweaking, but I mean, when you get it all dialed in, it's like,
See this? I wanted a red Telly.
Yeah.
This is a white road-worn body, and it showed up, and I was like, well, the weight's not too bad. It could be considered medium.
Yeah.
And then the neck, I was like, and first off, I put Fender logos on all my guitars, and they're all from eBay.
Yeah.
And they're all shitty, what's the word I'm looking for? Pirated.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to sell this as a Fender guitar, but I like the way it looks.
Yeah.
And so these were already came stock from Fender, so that's a good thing.
Yes.
But that neck right there and that red Telly, man, that's just another one of those projects. December comes, I'm like, what am I going to do? But let me spend some money that I shouldn't be spending, and I'll buy these parts and paint this guitar. And but they turned out well, and they're working instruments,
That's a fantastic job, on both the blonde and the Dakota red. That's really nice.
Yeah, and I need me a nice buffing wheel setup. I don't have a good buffing wheel setup, and if anybody wants to donate one, please send it to Lou Toomey and
Lou Toomey
and this guitar, and I'll go ahead and cover this.
Yeah, tell about the Les Paul, because you've had that one for a while.
Gibson gave me this guitar. It's an R8 from 2001, maybe, and it's had so many different pickups in it and so many different configurations of the pickups. But I ended up changing the inlays. I ended up shaving the neck.
Wow.
Murphy, Tom, our dear friend Tom Murphy, painted it the first time for me. This is before Murphy Lab.
Yeah.
Almost right before Murphy Lab. And he painted the first one for me. And how there was a spot down there or something I was doing, and I had blue painter's tape on this finish. Well, you don't do that. You don't leave it
Yeah.
overnight. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I found that
Yeah.
out the hard way because it screwed up the finish really bad.
Yep.
So Tom then was already into doing his freezer check stuff.
Yeah.
And he's such a beautiful dude, man. He goes, I'll do it for you. And so he refinished. This is right at the very beginning of the Murphy Lab stuff. And and I think there was an issue with what do they do in the filler? The filler for the body. Mm-hmm. They were using a filler at Gibson, from what I understand. I hope I'm not speaking out of court, but they were using this filler that wasn't working quite correctly. And Tom said, no, it's the filler is the problem. And they were debating that. And so he said, this guitar was kind of like a prove people wrong kind of guitar. So he refinished it and turned out great, man.
Yeah.
I like the guitar. I don't play it on the B&D gig hardly that much,
But didn't that guitar have like a little drawing from Billy Gibbons at one point, and you lost it?
I took it off.
Okay.
But he was in good company because I took off on that yellow 52 reissue. I had B.B. King signed this Strat for me. This is back in the early 80s, and I stood in line like a kid at a meeting Santa Claus, man. It was I stand in line, and I had a pocket knife, and I didn't have, there's no such, I didn't know anything about markers. I didn't have a marker. So I could finally get up to meet B.B. King, and I'm like, Mr. King, will you carve BB in the top of my Strat? And he goes, oh, no, Lucille wouldn't want me to do that to another man's guitar. And he put out a marker and signed B.B. King.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting rid of the guitar, and I was like, I'm taking that finish off. I mean, that because no one will appreciate it like I did.
Yeah.
But I got rid of that, and so Billy's in good company.
Yeah.
And he did sign that, and I did take it off, and that's another story. Working with Billy out on the road, man, when we toured together back in 2008.
Yeah, I mean, talk about getting to work with one of your heroes. I mean,
and if Billy watches a lot of things. So when the phone would ring and it would say BFG, I would literally go, "Oh my God!"
Yeah,
because and I told him this. He was in that category, Hendrickson, Clapton, Page, Beck, Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
He's in that company, man, and so, and he would come out at our sound check, and I had a 412 cabinet, and he would come out and lay over the 412, just lean over it while we're playing sound check, and I was like, my God, could this get any more intense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Billy Gibbons hanging out on your amplifier.
And he gave me a guitar.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a good one. It was a good gag. I think it's a gag. I don't know if it's a gag or not, but it was my mom was real ill in Kentucky, and I was going up to see her, and she was in the last month of her life. And I'm driving up, and before that, I get a phone call from Billy's office, and Billy wants to send. Can you give me your address? Because Billy wants to send you something. And I was like, because I've been talking to him. We did the CMAs together, and I was like. I kept talking about this Pearly Gates the custom shop was doing,
right.
And he goes, maybe, alluding to it, whatever. So when she said, give me your address, I want to send you something, and
you thought of Pearly Gates is coming.
Well, I thought for sure it's going to be something really cool, and then I thought, man, Billy's kind of eccentric, so it might be a box of tacos or a jacket or something, I don't know. So I call back, and she tells me it's a guitar, and she's not supposed to, and I told her I used my mother's thing as an excuse to know because I was going to leave town and be sitting on the front porch, and she told me it was a guitar. So I wait around till the FedEx truck shows up, and this girl gets off the truck and she grabs this box, and it's like that's too small for a guitar box, And I get up and I grab this box, and it's soft. And I opened the top up, and it's a Gibson headstock sticking in there. And this guitar, started pulling this guitar out, and it's SG. And it's the most ugliest damn guitar I've ever seen in my life. It was green, brown, sunburst with gold hardware, and it was a Chinese fake.
Yeah.
And I'm about halfway up the road going to Kentucky, and the phone rings, and it's Billy Gibbons, and he goes, ah! So she starts laughing that I got the guitar. So it was a good running gag. I still got the strings I still got the guitar.
Yeah.
I did put different strings on it. I think there were 7s or 8s or something like that.
Yeah.
And I tried my damnedest to play the guitar like that, and I played too hard. And
Yeah.
but I still got it, you know.
Yeah. So you've got this Strat that you put together. You've got the the R8 and the Telly, and then tell us about. So is this kind of like your normal pedal board? That you use?
No. This is like I said, I would have brought some different stuff today, but I didn't have access to it right now at the moment.
Yeah, because it's out on the road.
Yeah, well, it's
storage. Yeah.
I didn't know about it till last night, and it was one of those situations where, I have other stuff out touring with it, and I have other guitars and other,
Yeah.
But this board we're going to Europe with, and plus it's pieces parts that I kind of like the sound of it, overall.
Yeah, and you got your major food groups. You got the Strymon stuff. You got the Arion for the Warbly, Box of Rocks, the Dude, the OCD.
I like these two pedals. I don't hate them, and I kind of like that one. So.
Yeah, and then you've got a Truetone power supply underneath.
Yeah,
which
you want to see it?
Yeah, which one you got there?
Oh, there you
nice. Go. You got a CS11 on there.
Yeah, and look, man, whoever did that pedal board did a great job.
Yeah, he did a nice job of wiring it, and then they even did the little labels on the bottom so you know which is which.
And you can tell that I've taken it away. Well, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, you still got the shrink to go on there.
Yeah, damn, I should have got it up there, but I didn't.
Yeah.
But, and the power supply, by the way, this is my my third Truetone power supply.
Yeah.
And, they work flawlessly, man,
Wonderful.
No issues at all, so. And Dunlop, I've worked with Dunlop, and they were kind enough to help me out on these pedals. And I don't think I want a wah-wah. And then I hear Robin Trower still playing at almost 80 years old, and I go, damn, he's badass.
Yeah. I need a wah-wah.
And there's a big, they have a bigger wah that I like better, but everything's about space anymore, so.
Yeah, especially, going overseas and paying for freight and all that stuff. And then the little amp, is that one that you built?
No, I bought this amp from a guy down in Muscle Shoals.
Okay.
And then I did some tweaking to it, and then Ted Weber, God rest his soul, back in the day, he gave me a killer little Western Tool tweed champ, not tweed, but and then he gave me some Toomey badges, and Toomey badges go on things,
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Lou, I really appreciate you coming down and taking the time to tell us your story. It was a lot of fun,
man.
And I'm honored.
Thank you, my brother.